Now that you know who you are, and now that you've understood the basics of life, what about a new start? Welcome to Energ-Aid. I am your host, Adela Chokoto. Today I have a very exciting topic for you. I'm going to use the concept of new start. In the studio today, I have Dr. Leah Senzani. Welcome, Leah, to Energ-Aid.
Thank you.
So, like I mentioned, today we're going to talk about new start. And can you please tell our viewer what this stands for?
Well, New Start is a mnemonic, and it stands for nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, and rest. And finally, the last part is trust in God.
Okay, thank you very much. So, I think this topic is quite important. I, for one, believe in a new start. I feel that every day is always a new opportunity to redeem yourself. It's a new opportunity to change what you did yesterday. It's God's blessing, You can wake up every day with a new purpose. You wake up every day with a new, a new start, I can just say. So for today, can we just go through the letters each? So we'll start with N, nutrition. What do you have to say about nutrition?
Well, before I start, I agree with you. And the good thing about New Start is it's a program. So it's not something that you just do once. It's something that you should live by. And this allows you to be able to either recover your health or improve it or keep it as good as it is. So health is something that should be maintained. You don't suddenly get disease. It's something that develops from when you're young. Most diseases have developed over a while. So New Start is a concept that we should all strive to live by.
Yes.
Now, nutrition, it's quite simple. The concepts are very simple and easy to grasp and easy to live by if you're willing. It encourages us to eat the right foods. And I'm sure that we're familiar with what the right foods are. We should have the right proteins, carbohydrates. We should also have fats, lots of fruits and vegetables. But what nutrition also encourages is that you should be able to have these in the right amounts. Because it's possible for you to have all that, but in a very unbalanced manner. So nutrition for New Start encourages us to have them just in the right amounts. More carbohydrates, more fruits, more grains, lots of nuts and legumes, and a little bit of fat in the diet.
All right. But then, before we move on, I've heard of some people saying, don't take too many carbohydrates because they increase fat in the body and whatnot. How true is that?
Well, there's some truth in it, but not all of it is true. There are different types of carbohydrates. We're fortunate that God made it that we should be able to have all the grains that we need to get us all the right amounts of carbohydrates. Now, the type of carbohydrates that we get nowadays are the ones that would encourage us to have the wrong, that would have us having too many calories so that they are turned into fats. So those ones are the kind of carbohydrates that are over-processed. So the ones that come up with, that give us white sort of carbs. So white flour, white bread, everything that is of that sort. That is what is not so great for us and should be had in small amounts. On the other hand, if you have really good carbohydrates, things that comes from whole grain, whole wheat, I know they don't taste as nice and they take a while. You have to get used to the taste. But other than that, they have lots of vitamin B12 and it's really good for you. And chances of getting too many fats from that are much lower.
Oh, okay. And is there a certain way we should be cooking these foods? Is there a certain type of, cooking that we should be, taking? Should we be taking more boiled food or more fried foods? What do you think?
Well, as most people may know, boiled the less we're frying our foods, the better. So if we're going to have whole wheat, but whatever it is that we're having, we should fry it, then it's going to sort of defeat the purpose. So the more we boil it, the more we bake things, the more we grill it, that would be better. But for carbohydrates and proteins, always make sure that they're well cooked.
And what about charcoal foods, like when you put it on charcoal? Is that okay?
It's a matter of weighing things.
Okay.
On the one hand, it's good in that it helps to drain all the fat away if you're grilling, for example, some protein, some meats. But research has shown that if you grill the food, sometimes you encourage formation of carcinogens. Now, that just means things that may encourage your body to form cancer cells. So the sort of, let's just say, the smoke that's coming up, when it mixes with all the fats from all the whatever you're grilling, that might encourage you to have some cancer. So as good as it tastes, more likely bake it in the oven or grill it in the oven.
Okay, and what about radiation from, the oven and stuff? I've heard that might also not be too good.
As much as possible, we should be having a diet that is more having raw food. So that would be your fruits and your vegetables. So those don't necessarily need to be reheated, heated, or cooked as much as everything else. So if we stick to a diet that encourages that, we'll find that the need for reheating our food in the oven and therefore getting any radiation of any form is less likely. But I must say that the type of radiation that you get from that is not the regular scary radiation that we know.
Okay.
But the less of it that we can have, the better.
All right. And you mentioned diets and eating in the right proportions. Could you give an example of how we should eat every day, maybe the types of foods and maybe the portions that we should be taking?
You've brought up a very good point. Portions are very important. And how often we eat is actually what is giving us most of our problems. We snack too much, we eat too much, too many times. If we keep our meals to a maximum of about 2 to 3 meals a day, we can actually survive, as little as that sounds. That's all the body needs. But it means that in those meals, you should have good portions. The more you have, so you'd have a good portion of your carbohydrates, they should be able to sustain you through the day. And if you take in lots of water, which I'm sure we'll get to later on, that should be able to keep you going through the day. So a large breakfast, moderate lunch, and then a small dinner with fruits maybe, that would be enough to take you through the day.
So you said large breakfast. Would it be okay if I had a glass of milk and then I had cereal and then I had maybe 2 slices of bread and then maybe some fruits and then maybe some eggs and sausage and beans? Is that okay?
That's a lot to take in, but we have to be careful to not overindulge. Because one of the things, as I mentioned, that one of the letters in the mnemonic is temperance. So that applies across. For every letter, temperance has to be practiced. So that means that we should also make sure that large shouldn't be something that is too much for us. Now, I'm sure every person, when you're eating, if you eat slow enough and concentrate on what you're eating, your stomach will tell you when you've had enough. So just having, for example, toast with a glass of milk and some fruits, that should be quite enough. And but that would be toast with the whole wheat bread.
All right. Let's talk about junk food. I think a lot of teens out there love junk food. I have to confess, I do like junk food. Is there anything wrong with having junk food maybe once in a while, or should we not have it at all?
I'm not sure I would encourage taking in of junk food, but most junk food has too much salt or too much sugar. Now, if we take these in moderation, that's all right. We're allowed to have a little bit of sugar every once in a while. Now, the unfortunate thing with junk food is it's very addictive. It keeps telling you that you want to have more. And the more the TV tells you that you're hungry and you need to have a bar of chocolate, the more you want to have some. And it turns into a cycle. It's really difficult to control it. So the advice would then be that why not just try and avoid it as much as possible? You can always snack on something like a really healthy sweet fruit, some grapes, an apple, something of that sort. That should be good. However, desserts taken in small amounts at the right times, that should be okay. It's not bad to treat yourself every once in a while.
So what would be the right times to have desserts? And also, how often should we have junk food?
If you really must have junk food, it should be something that you do maybe weekly, if at all. But I would truly discourage it. Being teenagers, every once in a while, you're in school, you need to have something of that, something to snack on, maybe. You might have it every once in a while as a treat to yourself for, being able to follow your program. But more than weekly, I would discourage.
All right.
If at all.
Okay. Now let's talk about exercise. That's the next letter that we are going to do. What can you say about exercise?
Oh, there's so much to say about exercise, but I think these days, if it's not being done as something that you have to do in school or in an institution, then it's not done as much as it should be. Life has become much easier these days, so exercise isn't done as much as it should be done. But you don't really need to have something very complex. You don't have to carry weights. I know that's something that people, are interested in these days. But it can be something as simple as brisk walking, hiking. It should be something fun that you're not going to feel like you're overdoing it. We can add in chores as part of exercise, some proper chores, but I don't think too many people would be convinced. But simple exercises, just 30 minutes in a day, either first thing when you wake up, which is best, or later in the evening when you're done. That would be some really good, that would be enough to get you through. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's just go for a short commercial break. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about exercise. I'm here in the studio with Dr. Leah Senzani. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Now you mentioned about exercising every day for about 30 minutes. Why is it so important that we exercise?
Well, there are many benefits. For one, it helps to prevent a lot of diseases. So if you start, the earlier you start, the better. Helps your blood vessels to be supple. It helps your heart to be strong. It helps to make your muscles useful and strong. If you don't use them, you lose them. So you have to use them. And this will be helpful as you age on. It also helps to release some feel-good hormones, and it gives you a good body shape, and you feel better about yourself. So exercise is really important.
Let's move on to our next letter, W. It stands for water. What can you say about water?
We've heard so much about water that we forget its importance. But these days there's so much bottled water that one should be able to take in enough water. all you need is to take 6 to 8 glasses of water in a day. You don't have to take it all at once, but in between meals. And this is so important because, most of our body is made out of water. And so you can imagine that every process that has to happen has to have enough water. Your brain needs it. Actually, your brain is more than 80% of water. So if you're dehydrated, you're unable to process things as well as you should. So it's important to have water in your daily routine.
Okay. What happens if we have, not enough water? Or is there such thing as having too much water?
There is such a thing as having too much water, but usually it's associated with other medical conditions. So it's not often that you see something like that. But having too little water is something that we see every day. It can affect how well you can be able to reason. It can affect how well you're able to function just in general. So, the benefits are endless. So I think water should be taken far better than we do now.
Now let's move on to S, sunlight. Teens have a tendency, and I'm one of them, we have a tendency to stay indoors all day. Why do we need sunlight?
Well, in our setting, being in Africa, it's all right to spend a little more time indoors because our sunlight is we have quite a lot of it, and so we might not necessarily have any problems with that. But we do need sunlight because that's where we get our vitamin D, and that's something that we can easiest or only get from sunlight. Your bones get weaker if you don't get those, and this is seen in places where they don't have much sunlight for most of the day, maybe for most of the year. So we're quite fortunate, and we should use it as much as possible. This is an advantage. And but there is a but. Remember, temperance goes across the field. We should make sure that we have just enough and not too much. We don't want to encourage getting a sunburn or any skin cancers from that. So being in the sunlight before 9 a.m. and after 4 p.m. is probably best for getting some good vitamin D.
All right. You mentioned T, temperance. That's the next letter. I think you can just go on to explain about temperance.
Temperance is something that I think we all struggle with. It's all about moderation. It's making sure that it's not only avoiding the bad things, it's also making sure that we use the good things the right way in the right amounts. So desserts in the right amounts. The food we eat at the right times, not just any random time. The water we're taking, making sure that we utilize it as much as possible, inside and out, making sure we're clean. And also making sure that we avoid things like alcohol, tobacco, or any other drugs that might come our way.
You mostly talked about the physical part of temperance. Is there any connection to the mental or maybe spiritual part in terms of temperance?
Temperance, you also have to have time to mentally clear your mind, some time to rest your mind. And this involves making sure that you're in a group, you're associated with groups or people, maybe, church, home, school, where you can be able to exercise your emotions in a controlled environment, so that you're able to avoid things like depression and any other emotional distresses.
Let's move on to the next letter. A stands for air. Why is air important, if it is at all?
Air is important. Next to water, that's one of the things that is involved in most of, if not all the different uh, um, the different processes that keep us alive. And so air is very important. You can survive a couple of days maybe without food or water, but you can only survive for a couple of minutes to seconds without air. So that's really, really important. And the best thing to do is to make sure that every day you take in deep breaths, get used to having deep breathing exercises. And as often as possible, where possible, sleep with your windows open.
Okay.
You'll wake up much fresher.
All right. And the kind of air we breathe in, does it affect us in any way?
It does. We don't take care of our environment as much as we should. And as the youth, we're able to see the effects that bad air has now, and it's not only from smoking; it's also from pollution. So it's our responsibility to make sure that, as we're seeing the pollution that is there now, as we're getting older, and we should make a difference in this way. So what happens is any smoke, all the smoke and all the dust and debris and all that is in the air coats our lungs and our passages in such a way that we find that the lungs are unable to carry out the functions as well as they should. They should be able to get in good air and take out some bad things from the body, some pollutants, some toxins. But if we're already taking in lots of pollutants, then we can't be able to do all that. So you find that you feel tired, you're unable to function as well. And so it's very important to make sure you're having clean air.
Is there a certain way that we should be breathing? Because I think I've heard some people saying, no, breathe through your mouth or breathe through your nose. Does it make a difference in any way?
It does make a difference. You see, the way we were created, the nose is designed in such a way that it works like an air filter. So the more you breathe in through your nose, it allows your body to pick out all the pollutants that it can, as well as warm the air so that your lungs don't have to first start warming everything, picking out all the bad things, and then taking it in. So if you breathe in through your nose, that will be good. But if you're doing deep breathing exercises for whatever reason, that you can't breathe in through your nose, then it's allowed to breathe in through your mouth.
Okay, that's very interesting. At least now I know. And then the last letter, R. Rest. What can you say about rest?
Everything seems to be so important in New Start because it really does take your health from where it is to much better than that. And rest is also very important. There are a lot of studies that were done that show just how important it is. You'll find that there is some studies that kept people awake for days just to see what would happen, and people would completely change. If someone was a kind, calm person, after a while of being awake for, hours and days on end, they completely change. So it shows that we really do need to rest. You need to have at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. And as much as possible, make sure that you sleep a good time before midnight, because this is the time where you get the best sleep. And you get some good hormones, some feel-good hormones, some that repair your body, your immune system is boosted when you sleep enough. So rest is very important. And not only that, some studies were done where, well, not studies, but an observation that if you work throughout the week without resting beyond the 7 days that we normally have, then you're unable to function after that. So 1 day a week where you're not having to do anything stressful is also very important.
The last letter, and probably the most important, is trust in God. Why? How does this help us, in our daily lives, trusting in God?
You see, God created us. And so as our creator, he knows everything about every single part of our bodies, and including our emotions, our minds, our bodies physically. And he's able to fix everything for us, as well as to he not only heals us, but he also builds us. So the more that we trust him, we should always remember that his love for us is so much so that he's always willing to make sure that our bodies are healthy. And if we believe that there's a God that is happy to see us healthy, that also encourages to put our minds at ease, and we're more peaceful about our health.
That's very beautiful. There may be some viewers who may just be joining us now. So in a nutshell, can you just summarize what we've been talking about, New Start?
So New Start is basically a program that encourages our health to be taken from where it is to somewhere much better, more improved. And New Start is simply a mnemonic to help us remember the important elements of life.
That was Dr. Leah giving us the concept of New Start. I hope that this has blessed you. Before we go, I would like to share a verse with you. It comes from Philippians 3, verse 13 and 14. And it says, "Brothers, I have not considered myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do is press on towards the goal to win the prize to which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." Like I mentioned earlier in the program, I believe in a new start. I believe that every day is a new day to redeem yourself. I believe that every day has a purpose for itself. And so this verse always reminds me that even when I failed the day before, I still have a new day, a new start to redeem myself. I can still, persevere and go on and on with my life with using this New Start concept. And so I hope that you have enjoyed these series. You are with me, your host, Adela Chokoto, right here on Hope Channel with the program Energ-Aid. I hope that you will have a new start and that you will learn to trust in God, and that through the series that we've been going through, you will become a better person and even impact those around you. Remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. I will leave you with this song, done by Olive. It's entitled, "There is a Fountain."